Good morning, people of Earth. How are you? It's Yoko Ono who says that. People of Earth, how are you? Is Yoko Ono still alive, right?
Yoko Ono is still alive. And so is Henry Kissinger.
Now, how did those two horrible people live as long as they have, but Tina Turner had to die? I find that outrageous. And by the way,
Henry Kissinger turned 100 years old. 100 years old on Saturday.
That crook, that man who's caused more trouble in international relations than any other human being in the world, Henry Kissinger. There's still people who celebrate him. Some people think he's some kind of hero, you know. He's a horrible man. Worked with Nixon back in the day. That's how old he is. He worked with Richard Nixon.
Horrible man.
Richard Nixon, who was president of the United States before I was even born. Listen, speaking about these people of advanced age, I've got to say, Tina Turner died at 83, right? Did you see the news yesterday? Al Pacino is going to be a father. You know how old Al Pacino is?
Horrifyingly old. 84.
No, give me a number. Come on.
84. I know the number.
He's 83, so I'll give you one bonus point, but not both. 83, this motherfucker. And he's about to have a kid at age 83. It's going to be his fourth child. Now tell me it isn't great to be a man. Huh?
Nice. You know, there's a Zulu saying. There's a Zulu saying about old people having children. Ubanga izintandane. It's just
what is that? There goes Phumi with the load shedding. We were having such a good time, and then Eskom had to screw with us. Ay. Well, she'll be back in a minute. And we didn't even get the whole Zulu saying, so that's irritating. Anyway, Al Pacino is now 83 years old. He's about to have his fourth kid. I just think, like, there's a part of me that is absolutely, like, shocked that you know, you could father a kid at 83. Hooah! Nobody. That's the Al Pacino noise, right? Hooah! His girlfriend, by the way, let me tell you how amazing this guy is. Al Pacino's girlfriend, you know how old she is? 29. He's 83. What is that even in difference? Let me just see. 83. I got to take out my calculator for this. Minus 29. 54-year difference. That's insane. God bless you, Al Pacino. And by the way, his 29-year-old girlfriend is extremely attractive. So whatever this guy's doing, I want me some of that. I am a real fan, Al. What can I tell you? So that's very exciting stuff. By the way, have you seen what he looks like these days? Let me just show you this quickly because Al Pacino, you know, 83, not a great age. I mean, he doesn't look like he did when he did Scent of a Woman, in which he already played an older man. But look at this. I mean, he's a grisly old bastard, right? But good for him, 83 years old. I'll tell you what, a part of me is extremely impressed. I have to salute you, sir. 83, Al Pacino. Magnificent. Here's Phumi. We got it back. Shame, Phums. We saw you were halfway through a Zulu saying, and then we just, boom. What were you saying?
Hey, and it's not even 10 past 4. I was saying that the Zulu saying is Ubanga izintandane, which just basically means he's creating orphans. Because how long is he going to live? He's 83 years old. He's got another 15 years. And then that kid's got no dad.
But his girlfriend's 29.
Yeah, still. Ew.
Listen, I looked this woman up. Her name is Noor Alfala. All right. So she's his girlfriend, pregnant with his fourth child, previously dated Mick Jagger. How's this woman?
Hey, this girl. She's got it going on.
Yes, she's been busy, friends. Wow, with Mick Jagger before. She genuinely loves the old men, hey? Wow. Let me show you a picture of her quickly. Good Lord, you need this. You need this in your life at this time in the morning. Promise you that. So here is this woman, this phenomenal human being, who's prepared to, by the way, handle a lot of wrinkly old penises and scrota in her life. But good for her. Look at her. Right?
Yes.
Yes, sus. Look at him and look at her. And you know, I mean, first of all, she's got to be a bit of a gold digger because there's no way she actually enjoys sleeping with such old men. And even if she's not a gold digger, she has pretty wild tastes if it's this guy, Al Pacino and Mick Jagger. But again, it just shows you how unfair it is for women in this world. You know, we don't talk about this very often on the show because mostly I don't care how unfair the world is for women. But in this situation, I kind of feel sorry for women because you know, you girls have got a biological clock that tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. You get closer to 40 on the safe side of 40, and you're like, ooh, if I haven't had a child yet, I can never have a child, and I'm never going to be able to bear a child. I feel very sorry for women in that respect. And then you got the guys. The guys can have the kid at 83, and as Pumi says, they can leave these kids behind when they go, you know, crawling to their grave. And women don't have that luxury. For women, there is a certain window of opportunity. If you're going to be a mom, after that, it's closed, shut down. The factory does
Hey.
not open again. Hmm?
But she's hot, that girl.
Yeah, very, very. But I do feel sorry for her because what a life to have to be around so much wrinkly, old, revolting, gray-haired scrota and
Maybe
penises.
that's the thing that gets her like going,
Nah,
you know?
no, I think it's the bank accounts of a major movie star and a major rock star. I think that's what it is. And she's got there's a pattern. If it was just one man, I'd say, yeah, she's in love with Al, you know, because he's so charming and Italian. But no, I can't believe that she also dated Mick Jagger. That's quite something.
That is quite something.
All right, well,
But
you know
you
what
know
else?
what I always wonder about these girls? She was maybe she was a model, and so she was an A-lister already at all the parties, right?
Nah, nah. All right. Anyway, yeah. What were you gonna say? Maybe
No,
she
so
was.
I'm always just wondering about how I'm always just wondering how this happens, you know, like are you just standing at the bar and Al Pacino sidles over and says, "Hey girl," you know? Like
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, I told you what happened to me when I was in Hollywood. Because I went over there for the Oscars when Charlize won for Monster.
you got propositioned by Al Pacino?
No, I got proposition. I didn't get proposition. I got a full tongue kiss from none other than Julianne Moore. Yeah, I wrote this. I wrote this in my book, and you know who can validate that? Who will be a witness for this? And we'll talk about it when I get him on the show again. Is Randall Abrams? He was there. He saw it happen. I went up to the bar at the Beverly Hills L'Ermitage Hotel after the Oscars. It was like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. We'd been to some of the after parties. We'd seen the ceremony. So everybody assumed we were important and we were Hollywood. And we're staying at this very fancy hotel. And Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon were still together. They were staying at the hotel. There were a lot of celebrities around. And our hotel was buzzing as we got to near 1 o'clock in the morning. And I said, okay, guys, I'm going to go up because there, three South Africans. Me, Azania, she was there as well, Azania Musaka, and
Yeah.
Randall. Azza didn't see it happen though, but Randall did. And I went up to the bar, and I'll tell you about what his reaction was in a second. But I went up to the bar, ordered a couple of drinks, and she turns to me and she goes, "You're not from here, are you?" So I'm like, Jesus. Because when you turn around and you recognize somebody straight away and they're a big famous star and you're a nobody.
Listen, this happened to me last night. I'll tell you about that just now.
Oh, okay. Well, you see, this is exciting. But I mean, Julianne Moore is not a face that you don't know. Everybody in the world knows what she looks like with that red hair. And I mean, Jesus, she's a good looking
Ugh,
woman. I mean, even
she
now, she's a
is.
good looking woman. And what is she? She's 60, 62. So she's 62. So she's significantly older than me, all right? And at that point, I must have been in my late 20s, early 30s. Okay, so,
Definitely better material. Definitely.
right. So this is Cougar. Anyway, I turn around and I look at her and she's now asked me, "You're not from here, are you?" So I go, "No, ma'am." She looks,
No,
she looks me,
man.
she looks me dead in the eyes and she grabs my head like this and she pulls me in for a kiss. And I thought, Jesus, take me now. This is like the coolest thing. This is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. And I don't know if I can top this, Lord. So just take me now. My life's over. I wrote about this in my book. Anyway, she kisses me. I am like, I'm floating in the clouds just because I can't believe what's happened. Right. And then when I come to, when I like wake up, I'm like, I have to shake my head around. She's gone. She's gone. I'm like,
She's gone. Did
I go,
this really happen?
did it even happen? Right. And the bartender's like, hey, here's your drink. So I'm like, oh my God. And I turn around and Randall looks at me. He's like, I saw that. I take the drinks around. And they all, because now he's told the rest of the table. And they're all like, holy shit. And I still can't believe it. But this is apparently, I mean, maybe this is the way she behaves every night. She has this extraordinary power. You know, she's got this beauty and she's got this guile and she's got this this confidence. So she could just, I mean, I wasn't the best looking guy there, but this is probably what she does. She plays games. And then once she's had her game and she's had her fun, she just leaves. Because I trust me, I tried to find her. I like walked
Did you
around that.
try to find her
Well,
to say what?
I wanted I needed to see her to actually confirm in my head what I'd experienced. Because even though I'd been through it, I could not believe what I had seen or experienced, right? So I needed to confirm it for myself. And anyway, so the reason I tell you this story is because you asked at these parties and things in Hollywood, you just walk up to people and yes, it happens exactly like that. I mean, you could go up to somebody and they're a big A-lister and you could say, "Hey, my name is," and they'll go, "Hi," because they assume if you're in their environment, you must also be important. You know, they think, "Oh, well, this is a big player, or this is some heavy hitter's son, or this is someone's daughter, or maybe this person can get me ahead." You know, actors and actresses, in fact, the whole of Hollywood, directors, everybody except maybe the producers. And this is why Harvey Weinstein got away with so much, is because everyone in that place is waiting for their next big break. Even if they've already had a couple of big breaks, even if they're a big star already, they still need to impress somebody for the next project, right? You're only as good as your last movie or whatever it is. So they're always on 100 out of 100. They're always turned on full, ready to make things happen, ready to make a deal, ready to impress somebody, ready to get the next job because it could be the big one that gets them the Oscar or gets them a big paycheck or it gets them their new house in Beverly Hills. You know, this is how it works. So this woman, God bless her. I mean, she's now going to have to produce Al Pacino's kid. And he's got what? He's got maximum another 10 years on the planet. Maximum.
Yeah.
The kid will barely know his dad. His dad's never going to be able to play soccer with him or, you know, go outside and like kick a ball around or, you know,
He's
take him to
always going to be an old man. He's always like, this kid's going to grow up and its dad is going to be like, hey, and also its other siblings are older than it. So much older. It's like, sucks.
Well, I mean, listen, your dad's still Al Pacino, which counts. Would you rather have Al Pacino as a dad or, you know, or
Grandpa
actually,
Pacino.
so you're going to be an orphan, but you got Al Pacino for a father. I mean, for God's sake, this is probably one of the most
Well, you
iconic
are set up for life.
Yeah, and certainly you don't have to worry about money. I mean, like someone's going to look after that kid. Anyway, look, Congo Chris says Gareth never talks about the tongue kiss he got from Amy Schumer. Oh, fuck, that would be horrible. Now that, you wouldn't have ever seen me again. I would have gone into a liberal cave A cave in Afghanistan. That would have been the last time you ever saw me.
Oh,
Anyway,
shame.
yeah, so, exciting times where an 83-year-old man can have babies like this. They have, of course, the corollary to this is that there are women who've had kids and successfully born them late,
It's called the geriatric pregnancy.
which is such a
Once you
horrible
hit
term.
30 or something like that.
Oh, no, Jesus,
But
not
it's also,
30.
it starts
Not
early.
30.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it starts
No,
early. You're like 30 years
hang on.
old and it's a geriatric
No,
pregnancy.
wait. No, sorry, Pumi. No. Geriatric pregnancy. I mean, I know that's what it's called, but there's no way. So apparently, it's for those who are 35 or older. 35 is not old. Can you imagine? Your doctor says to you, you're 36 years old and you have a kid. I know 2 girls who had their first child after age 36. Okay. The fact that you'd
My
have to
aunt
call
was
it.
40 when she had her first child.
Yeah.
Geriatric.
But what a thing to call it. Imagine your confidence when the doctor says to you, yes, Miss Mashiko, I'm
Yes,
very
ma'am.
pleased to inform you. You are, in fact, a woman who now has a geriatric pregnancy. I mean, what the hell is that? What a thing to say. Jesus. We define maternal age as those of 35 or older, the estimated delivery date. Historically, pregnancies at this age or older are considered higher risk and are called geriatric pregnancies. Good Lord. What a thing to burden a 36, 37-year-old with. Hey, geriatric pregnancy lady.
Even at 35.
Clint
It's a
Eastwood
thing.
recently turned 93. What a life he's had and probably still does. Oh, yeah. Oh, no,
Mhm.
no, no.
Oh,
Listen.
yeah.
Listen, there is nothing wrong with getting old. If you're in good health and you enjoy what you do and you can still wake up with something really purposeful in your life every day, there's nothing wrong with getting old. What's horrible about getting old is if you are in terrible health or you're on your own and nobody loves you or you have nothing to do. Then you will not make it to 93 years old.
Nothing to do.
Thank God. I thought this story was about Amy Schumer, who was the girl. Hope she didn't have the herp and chlamydia. You people are
Hi,
really
man.
mean about Amy Schumer. I mean,
Hi,
poor old
man.
Amy. Even pigs need love.
Ew.
Yeah, you is about right. So, Pumilele, yesterday evening, first of all, you have a story about talking to someone famous, which we've got to get to. But yesterday evening, you also did pop in after you went to see one-act plays, one of them featuring your son, or your son. We'll get to that now. You popped in at Cliff Central because we had an event. We've had a very busy week. We had Headway last Friday. We had our Justice Malala breakfast on Tuesday morning. And then yesterday evening, we had an event with Prof. Zabo and Adcock Ingram OTC, the sponsors of Brave, who, of course, have put together a brilliant series called Beyond Madness with us. But you know about that if you listen to this show. What you don't know is that we did a live event last night with journalists, really, really interesting and harrowing stories about the things that journalists go through. Katie Catapodis was
Mm.
telling us 2 stories, and she was so blasé about them. The first one was when she told us she was a young journalist and she went with Xolani Gwala at that point to Richmond in KZN during some outbreaks of
Yo.
violence. And there was a famous politician who'd been assassinated, and she said she and Xolani had to duck behind an old car because there were bullets flying over their heads, and there was blood on the floor in this house, and people said, "You've got to leave now," with a very aggressive, like kind of, if you don't leave now, bad things are going to happen tone. And they got out by the skin of their teeth. And she remembers phoning her mother saying, "I'm okay." And her mother saying, "What are you doing this for?" And she was like playing it down to her mom. And we talked a little bit about PTSD and all the rest of it. She also told the story about how she was just walking with her family to a lunch or a breakfast down the road, and she was on her phone, wasn't paying attention, and this guy just said to her, "Your phone, or I'm going to shoot your son." And she was so calm about it. And these are the kind of stories that not just journalists in this country obviously have to go through, but ordinary South Africans face on a day-to-day basis. And having Prof. Zabo there, he was unpacking the psychological effects, the PTSD, the fact that so many people are dealing with day-to-day traumas and they never really actually have the time to sit down and deal with it. And there are certain jobs that are worse than others. And one of those jobs
Mm.
is field reporting. But it was an amazing discussion, and you'll get to hear that as part of the Beyond Madness series. But I really enjoyed it.
Everybody needs to hear that
Yeah, we do.
conversation and think about it in our lives because we're all traumatized. I think all South Africans, we've spoken about this before,
Mhm.
that all South Africans actually are living with differing levels of PTSD. And I think that, like
Yeah.
the load shedding now and the incessant nature of it, is compounding all of that for all of us.
Well, you popped in just in time to have some of the delicious food which was brought. I noticed your
Yes.
timing was impeccable because you arrived as the event ended, and you were just in time for some desserts. Listen, we had someone who provided food last night. Just Teddy, they're in Santon. Oh my God, what food this is! Wow, I'm not a foodie.
Listen,
Hey, I'm not a
the
foodie at
the
all. But sure,
and this is the second event that Just Teddy has done, and the food that first time around was amazing, and I was like,
oh,
okay. And then yesterday,
good.
the food was so good. I did come for the food. And as I was driving to the studio, I was hoping there would still be food left, and then I had dessert, which was mousse on mousse on mousse. The most
So nice.
incredible thing.
So tell us about this situation where you met a famous person.
Last night, as I was biting into all the delicious food, one of the people that were there is former Miss SA, Karishni Naika. And she
Yes,
came to say she came to say
good.
I think she came to say goodbye to you. I don't
Yeah,
remember who was, you see, I don't even
wow.
remember who was in the little crowd. But she literally came and stood next to me and touched my shoulder. So it was like, oh, who's this? And I turned around and I was face to face with like the most beautiful apparition, quite literally.
She, you know how.
He
Listen,
is
she told me last night. So Karishni tells me last night, and she's got. We're going to get her on the show because having seen her after not having seen her for a long time, I mean, she's always been stunning. She said to me last night, she just recently turned 50. Karishni, can you believe it? Now, and let me tell you, first of all, she is in unbelievable shape. She looks amazing. This woman is absolutely spectacularly beautiful. She always has been, but she has not aged a day. So when people tell me, oh, certain people look
yeah.
great at their, I'm like, how
Listen
did?
here.
So she swears it's
50.
because she doesn't do she doesn't do any plastic surgery. She doesn't do pharmaceuticals. She doesn't
She
do
don't need it.
she eats very clean. We're going to get her on to talk about this because whatever her secrets are, we all
Listen.
need to know those.
I she's one of the few former Miss Essays I actually have never seen in real life, right? So she's only ever been in magazines and on TV for me. And so when I turned around and she was this far from my face, and
Mm,
she is
she's
like
beautiful.
she's
Beautiful.
all of these things don't. And now that you tell me she's 50 as well, because
I
you know
know.
also that was the thing. And like an idiot, right? I turned around and I looked at her and I was just like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. It was a little
Yeah.
embarrassing.
Well, I'm sure she gets that though all the time because that's the
Yeah,
natural
but
response to seeing someone like that is you have to say what's on your mind, and on your mind all you're thinking is this is wild. How could someone look this good?
at 50,
Well, I
she
mean, I didn't even
she's
realize that. She told me that. If she hadn't told me, I would have guessed like maybe 41. Yeah, it's
yay.
unreal. Anyway, listen, we could talk about this stuff all day, but guess what our government are doing while we're trying to make a living, while we're all trying to live our lives, we're trying to get on with the difficult business of being South African and making things work. Guess what our government are doing, Pumi?
Struggling through our PTSD.
especially when. Yeah, exactly. What do you think they were doing? Here's a story from Business Tech, okay, who I have no reason to doubt this morning. So I don't think this is bullshit. From the 1st of June, nicotine substitute solutions,
Today.
including vaping products, will be included in the tax net with a flat excise duty of R2.90 per milliliter. So excise duty on vaping has been in the pipeline for a while. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's 2022 budget speech included it. But the Revenue Service, who we love, SARS, said that the forms which govern tobacco products excise had been amended to account for vaping products. So guess what, everybody? As you wake up to a new month this morning, you're also waking up to a new tax. Now, I know we don't all vape. And for those people like me who do not vape, you probably don't care. But let me tell you something. This is disgusting. It's just another sign of how this government is willing to milk us for everything we've got. You know how many people have given up smoking and gone to vaping, not only because they believed they would do it less or that it was more healthy, but also because they probably wanted to save themselves some money. Well, forget about that, everybody. Not going to happen.
Well, you know who's not trying to save us money? And I saw this on the news yesterday, I think, is our favorite president, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa,
Oh, God.
asking Parliament to increase the budget for his office staff. So the office of the presidency, he has to go there and beg them to increase his budget for the staff in his office.
I would like to see
That's
him
what.
have less stuff. What does he do, right?
What does he? What do they all do? All those people at the
What does his staff do?
presidency.
Besides, well, the one that we knew about was, of course, during COVID, there was that one staff member of his who was his spokesperson who was involved in tender fraud around PPE, remember?
And she has conveniently just.
We don't hear about
This-
her anymore. Right. She never went to jail. She never appeared in court. Nothing happened to her. She just quietly went away. And I bet you she continued to make money off of those tenders. So, I really think.
Is this us doing news headlines right now?
I think we're doing news headlines. Speaking of Cyril Ramaphosa and news headlines, so this was in the news yesterday on News 24. Apparently, Ace Magashule has faced suspension and expulsion from the ANC after having illegally suspended Cyril. Poor Ace Magashule. You notice
And
that
failing to apologize for it. This
Well,
is what he's.
who cares, right? I mean, who has even thought about Ace or suspended from the party? Nobody. Just shows you how once you're out, nobody gives a shit anymore.
But you know what is particularly galling about this story is that the reason Ace is facing expulsion from the party is because he suspended Cyril and then failed to apologize for this. Not any of the things that he is accused of, not the
It's not.
millions siphoned from government tenders, not any of that. Not any
No.
of that criminality. No. He has failed to apologize to the president for unilaterally suspending him. And therefore, he now has counting down. It was 7 days when the article came out. So now he's got 6 days to
Right.
apologize. Not apologize. He has 6 days to make presentations as to why he shouldn't be expelled from the party.
And actually, this is just this is like a battle within a very dysfunctional family that none of us actually need to be exposed to. I don't give two shits about whether Cyril's been apologized to by Ace or whether Ace is in or out of the ANC. I don't give a damn. This is like when you hear about the ex's ex who lives in another country who had a scrape with law enforcement. I do not give a shit about this. Yet it's in the news. I suppose we're meant to pretend that we give a damn.
It's distracting us from the real things.
this is quite interesting because, I mean, I'm trying to, I want to move from like bad news about smoking and bad news for Ace Makashule, which nobody cares about, to something we do care about. So, there have been all these boycotts for beer in America. US, US,
Yes.
consumers, US consumers have been boycotting Bud Light because they took on Dylan Mulvaney, who is a man who's pretending to be a woman, and to my mind is mocking women every single day by doing the most parody version of what a woman is. Anyway, they've obviously taken some heat on this, but nobody expected the boycott of Bud Light to have the impact it has on Budweiser's holding company, Anheuser-Busch, InBev, after Budweiser in the US partnered with a so-called social media influencer to promote Bud Light. The comedy of errors and ignorance about developing events affecting consumer sentiment saw the Bud Light boycott gain momentum and spread to other brands in their stable. In the 2 months since the controversy started, their share price has fallen 22%.
Yo.
Yeah. When the campaign with the embarrassing social media influencer was launched. And the market cap at the moment is down by more than $25 billion. So don't tell me that you can't affect the price of a share if you just
Of
deliberately
course you can. Consumer sentiment.
You can.
Consumer sentiment is a big part of that
Right.
price, of that share price, is consumer sentiment.
But Budweiser are doing their absolute utmost at the moment to wind this back and to save face, and it's not working.
I wonder
Because
what that is going to do to the price of beer, because Anheuser-Busch are also the people who bought SAB and now own something like 1 in 3 beers around the world.
right.
Anheuser-Busch.
Well, I mean, also, can I just point out something kind of obvious, that mostly beers are drunk by women, and if you consider Bud Light a beer, it's a really disgusting, watered down, very, very crappy form of a beer. But if you consider that a beer, the target market there is like frat boys. It's male. It's almost all male, and when you are marketing to young men, do you really want to have a 26-year-old man who's pretending to be a woman as your spokesperson or your social media influencer? I mean, who came up with this? I'll give you a guess. It was a woman who came up with this ridiculous idea. Some left-wing lunatic woman who was put on the board of Budweiser, and she was put in charge of this brand and clearly does not like or understand the target market of her product at all. So even if you remove the politics, she's just bad at business, and she's taken an extended leave of absence. Again, why they can't just fire people who are shit at their jobs, I do not know. But it's not a South African thing only, because clearly in America they have this problem too. Anyway, a statement by Brendan Whitworth, who's their CEO for North America, added more fuel to the fire, with customers describing it as a lame attempt to pacify customers without even mentioning the campaign. A TV commercial featuring Bud Light's signature galloping horses and a glimpse of the US flag to play on Americans' feelings of patriotism did little to stem the criticism. A month after the disaster struck in, with boycott gaining strength, HSBC analysts issued a statement to its clients advising that it downgraded AB InBev from buy to hold on concerns that the consumer boycott of Budweiser would impact shares in the holding company. So it's a disaster. And then, as you mentioned, Phumi, for beer across the world, it is going to hit hard. So
Listen,
we'll have to see.
this is going to be a case study for the ages, in marketing. So when you study marketing, one of the big case studies that there is the Cola Wars, right? So the Cola Wars is one of the big ones. Lexus is a big one. I'm telling you now, this clusterfuck is going to be another one.
Total disaster. Why are we talking about this Dylan guy again? He's been completely cancelled. Everyone else is cutting stunt. Well, we're talking about the company, you idiot.
We're talking about Anheuser-Busch.
And we're talking about the results of this campaign. Now, if you don't want to talk about that, then that's absolutely fine. But you know what? It's called the Gareth Cliff Show. So I don't know where you thought it was going.
Haibo.
Jesus. Congo Chris says he's not pretending to be a woman. He's pretending to be a caricature of a 13-year-old girl. He's mentally unwell. And if you've ever seen this guy's videos, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I actually had never seen this guy's videos, had never heard anything about this guy until the Anheuser debacle, until the Bud Light debacle.
Yes,
That's when
me
I
neither.
first heard
Me
about
neither.
him. And
I mean, I'm not exactly on the internet looking for grown men at 26 who are impersonating 13-year-old girls. So, in that respect, people are bound to be horrified when they see this for the first time if they didn't know who this was. And I don't know who this guy's target market is either, but I guarantee you it's not beer drinkers, right?
it's
Also,
going to be one for the ages.
proving my point again that so many people in marketing do not know what they're doing. Marketing has become a place where most companies just they pad their business. There are obviously one or two really good marketing people in every corner of the marketing world. And there are obviously more in certain companies because they hire on merit. But it does seem to me to be a place where a lot of companies put sheltered employment staff in, because
Mm,
in marketing it's hard to account for just how badly things go, how well things go. Most people, if you just keep your head down and don't make a noise, you can see a small increase every year. And
I think
so they
I think
clever.
when they finally kind of draw the timeline on all of the crap that happened to get us here, I think one of the things that's going to stand out is how wrong the numbers can be. Because one of the things that's crept into marketing quite a lot is data, right? So everybody talks about big data and what the data tells you. And I think it probably on paper made sense that there's
Mm,
this number of people that follow this guy that are in our target audience that follow this guy
right.
that look at
No,
his
so
he is
you're absolutely right.
influential in
You're
this
so
market because the
Fumi, you're so right.
numbers say.
Yeah. And because a lot of the people in marketing in the world, and I've encountered a lot of these people in South Africa too, their whole job is just looking at numbers and deciding which numbers to go with. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not even them. They've got an outside consultant or an ad agency that says to them, oh, this person is trending on Twitter. We need to be with them. And they have no idea of why. And they're not particularly interested. But there's also an element of like this trying to be woke, trying to be on the cutting edge of what social trends are happening and how you can be cool and how you can be inclusive and diverse and all of that stuff. And I think a lot of these people cannot read the tea leaves because they genuinely live in a bubble. Anyway, all right, so let's look at this. Taylor Swift. I can't believe we're talking about this, but here it is. This is a big story, apparently. Insider.com reports Taylor Swift fans say they're suffering from post concert amnesia after they get too excited during the singer's tour.
Say
Listen,
that again, please.
we're going to talk about this with Prof. Zabo or with Dr. Hanan
S-
because
just say it again. Post
so
concert, what?
so Taylor Swift sings this line apparently in one of her songs. Hold on to the memories, they will hold on to you. But for some Swifties, that's what they call themselves, it has become difficult to hold on to memories of her tour. Fans are coming forward to admit that they're suffering from, Jesus, these are stupid people, post concert amnesia. It was like an out of body experience, as though it didn't really happen to me, said Nicole Booz, Gettysburg fan of Taylor Swift. Yet I know it did because my bank account took a $950 hit to cover the ticket. Oh, bad things happen because you deserve them, huh? Others have been talking to Reddit to share their guilt at not being able to recollect crucial moments of Swift concert, with some saying they felt almost as if they were dissociating from the experience.
Do
I
you
went
think
to the
it's like being hungover? You know, when you like drank too much and then you can't remember bits of what happened the night before.
I went to the Arlington show a few weeks back, and I honestly cannot remember most of the concert, wrote one Swiftie on Reddit. I know I was there, but it feels like a dream, added another. Jesus. Oh my goodness. Anyway, Swift is 2 months into her blockbuster 52-stop tour. The singer covers 44 songs from all 10 of her studio albums during a 3-hour showcase. Post-concert amnesia is real. New Yorker Jenna Tocatlian told Time. You notice that these are all really, really impressionable teenage girls. Have you noticed
Okay,
that?
I'm only going to I'm only going to accept this as a thing if all the Beyonce, what do they call them?
Swifties.
No, the what do they call the Beyonce ones? The
Beehive.
Beehive. If the Beehive also comes out and they have a similar experience, then
Oh.
I'm gonna say it's definitely a new mental phenomenon happening.
But you see how quickly a social contagion takes off in this target market. Talk about knowing your target market, right? If you know one thing about teenage girls, they are the most impressionable target market of all. And sometimes it extends into your 20s. But these girls, if one girl says, "Oh my God, I'm dissociating and I've got amnesia, post-concert amnesia," you watch every other stupid girl in the school will say exactly the same thing because they don't want to be left out. They don't want to be the uncool one.
Oh, I love it.
Phew, these are stupid people. Oh my God. And of course, as many people in the
Swifties.
comments are pointing out, maybe these people were drunk, you know? I mean, a lot of people are alcoholics and at an early age. Hermine says, sounds like they had some good shit at those concerts. They convinced me. I will go when I get a chance. Natalie also brings up this. Have you seen the whole Target debacle? People trashed the stores, boycotted, etc., about Pride clothing displays. Oh, please, ladies and gentlemen, do
Oh,
not forget that we are now in the exciting month of Pride. Yes, this is where every brand in the world that hasn't got a plan is going to be putting rainbow colors in everything because they feel it's absolutely most important that they celebrate a community that is just being celebrated because they have different sexual inclinations to the majority of people. So, you know what? I don't have any problem with the LGBTQ community, but the fact that we need a whole month to celebrate someone's lifestyle is just beyond me. I mean, like, what aspect of your lifestyle, Pumi, would you expect the whole world to just stop whatever they're doing and celebrate?
nothing that exciting happens in my life.
Right.
Nothing that exciting.
Anyway, the only country where they won't be putting pride flags and everything is Uganda, obviously, where they clearly have some rules that the rest of the world don't want them to have. It's amazing
How
how
did
South
it
Africa goes out of
is
order.
it really a month? Is it really a month? Because
Whole month.
how did we move? Like we have Mother's Day and we have Father's Day and we have Grandparents' Day and
Yeah.
but a month really? Is it
Well,
really a month?
it probably started, we started off with things like Black History Month in America. And it all comes from like guilty left-wing white women. All of this does. Who realize that they have a really good life, that most of these women don't work. Their husbands bring home the bacon and they sit at home and they're racked with guilt over the fact that they have great lives and other people in minority communities do not. And so they concoct along with people who they know that they can cozy up to. They concoct these bullshit months. It's not a day anymore. It's now a month, as you point out. So yes, we're in Pride Month, everybody. So get ready for a whole month
We
of
are
having to see everything festooned with rainbow colors. It's going to be super exciting.
okay, but here is something that I just realized as you then spoke about it being the 1st of June. We're in this second half of the year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Second half already?
Mm-hmm. I know.
Yeah.
So LGBTQ12345 says Max Sony.
Hi, man.
Yeah. Apparently, so this is what Congo Chris says, not just pride clothing displays. They have kids' clothes for tucking away your pork sword. Now, again, if you're trans,
Stop.
uh,
Please
if you
stop.
genuinely have gender dysphoria, I'm sure that there is a bunch of stuff that we can do to make you feel like you're part of society and stop you from killing yourself. But to be actively
Can we
marketing swimming costumes to kids where they can hide
can
their
we talk about this
junk.
phrase pork sword for a second?
It's a horrible term, hey?
I have never heard that before.
It's a horrible
Did he
term.
just make it up, or is it
Oh,
something
no, no.
people say?
No, no, it's an actual term. It's an English slang term for a penis. Pork sword. Exciting, huh? Unbelievable.
Carl says that's not how maths works. July 1 is the second half of the year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay, thank you.
But this is which one's the coldest month usually? Is it June or July or August? Because those are the 3 months of
I
winter.
think it's August.
Jesus. So we've still got that on the way.
I think it's August.
Hardy Dave
Okay,
says,
Carl, that makes me feel so much better. Don't feel like the year's running out on me.
Blessed day, guys. Really must fly, says Hardy Dave, whose icon is a Hardy Dar. I'll take that. Thank you very much. All right, so now we've covered the important news story about Taylor Swift. The other important news story about Ace Magashule. I've just told you how government are going to take more money from you, especially if someone in your family is a vapor, and how Pride Month has started and AB InBev are losing some 20 to 25% of their share value.
Those are some really big stories, hey?
I think they are. I think they're pretty good story. And of course, no, don't forget Al Pacino with his kid at 83.
Yo.
Quite something, huh?
That is definitely going to be one of the things I'm going to be talking a lot about today.
Well, I mean, people
Fourth
always say,
kid, 83.
people always go, well, what a time to be alive. And I'm like, yeah. People say that. But my God, look at this. Look at all this stuff in the news. It's a hell of a time to be alive.
He's got twins as well? Gosh, guys.
Yeah, he's got twins. Hey, listen to this. Gray says, it's now called Transheiser-Busch.
Okay, so Al Pacino has 22-year-old twins
Sorry,
with his former girlfriend.
Yes.
And a 33-year-old daughter. So 3 girls. Olivia, a girl and a boy, Olivia and Anton, and a 33-year-old daughter. This poor child.
Anton, come here, your daddy wants to see you. We love this story, don't we? All right, so we've got a couple of minutes before we play you our interview with Justice Malala about his brand new book, which is incredible. It's about the assassination of Chris Hani and how close we came to civil war in this country. And we spoke a little bit about the book. We also talked about some current affairs. Justice had a lot to say, especially about cholera in Hammanskraal, which is where he's from. So we'll get to that just now in the next hour. But yeah, I mean, let's take your comments. And by the way, the phone lines are open. I've been ignoring the calls, which is my fault. But, if you want to call us, you can do that too. I'll put the number up on the screen now. And if you are listening to us live, you want to give us a call, you can do so on 083-295-5769. And I can put you on the show live. Dun, 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 and we can actually hear you instead of just having to see the comments. It's very exciting. Isn't that exciting?
That is exciting. But everybody must listen. So like the next hour is going to be like a burning platform reunion.
Yes.
It was a really cool conversation. And I got the book and I'm looking forward to reading it.
Listen, just while we're on the book, because it's worth discussing a little bit. The whole interview was not about the book, but Justice goes into such beautiful detail and reminds me, because I was a high school kid when Chris Hani was assassinated. And I remember the news, and I remember my parents saying to me, listen, this is serious stuff. This is a big, big deal. And you need to be aware of what a big deal this is. This is not a stupid thing. South Africa could be in big trouble.
Hi.
Hello, how's it? What's up?
How are you?
Good. What's up, man?
All right, so I got a question.
Yeah.
Very interesting one. When Vladimir Putin lands in South Africa,
Yeah.
what do you think is going to happen here, seeing that the government decided to, allow him to be here because they disregarding the ICC?
Can I ask you a question first? Are you Alan Winde, the Premier of the Western Cape? Because he's the only guy who's really interested in this story and who swears that he will himself handcuff Vladimir Putin. We spoke about this on the show yesterday. Alan Winde, this windbag of a Premier of the Western Cape. I don't know, dude, but I think nothing will happen. I think nothing is going to happen. He will land here, he will have his meetings, and then he will leave.
Isn't there repercussions? Do you think that the government of the US will have something to say?
They already have something to say. They're even talking about sanctions, right, Phumi?
Absolutely. So the repercussions.
This sounds like Doesn't this sound like just before 1994 when we had sanctions on our own government at that time? Doesn't this smell the same way?
You know, it does. When I say nothing will happen, nothing will actually happen to Vladimir Putin, but there will obviously be consequences for us because you make alliances and you make enemies, and sometimes the enemies cost you a lot and the alliances cost you a lot. And South Africa's government clearly is unable to figure out which side of the story it belongs on. Keeps saying, well, we're neutral, we're non-aligned. But sometime, somewhere, you've got to choose which side you're on. And it seems to me like given any situation, forget international diplomacy, but almost any situation, our government always choose the worst option.
And that is the basis to think, why should we as South Africans that don't want to align with Russia because of the human rights issues that are on question at the Ukraine conflict and as South Africans, I certainly hope they are more cleverer than a few others out there.
Let me just throw this in as well. I mean, you know, you say Russia and human rights abuses or Ukraine or whatever, but I mean, which country has been which country has been more dangerous to the world in the last 50 years? And I'm by no means like an anti-American. I'm finding myself increasingly skeptical about their intentions, but you have to also look at this from an objective point of view and say, well, they are our biggest trading partner. We can't afford to lose them. I don't think it would be such a bad idea, though, if the US government placed sanctions on our politicians, not the people of this country, not the products of South Africa. We've got 6,000 odd products which we're able to sell in the US.
And we have a hang of a lot of American companies in South Africa.
Right.
Who
so there's going to be
invested in South Africa, and we have lots of investors that are invested in South African companies. So very bad things could happen. But what America now
starting to really get annoyed with us.
All right. Well, what do you think, Phumi? What do you think, Phumi? This guy's a good question. Go ahead.
I didn't get his name.
He didn't tell us his name because he probably
didn't
works
tell us his name.
Probably works for the Russians. So go go ahead.
I'm a businessman trying to do a good business, and it's becoming so difficult to be a white male, 51-year-old in this country.
No, absolutely.
I am truly annoyed.
All right, so Phumi, answer the question. What do you think?
So there are definitely going to be repercussions, but I said last week, and I know y'all think I don't like Cyril Ramaphosa, but Cyril Ramaphosa is making some fundamental mistakes, and I don't know. I see them as mistakes, but I don't know if they are mistakes on his side. I think Cyril Ramaphosa is playing a game, and he is afraid of what will happen to him because he has done some bad things using the American dollar, and the Americans are after him, and he is not above taking the whole country down with him as a shield against repercussions from the Americans.
All right,
That's
dude,
my
we're going to let you go. Take another call here. We only got a little bit of time. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, it's Gray. How you guys?
Hey, Greg. Cool. Go ahead.
So, I just read Doreita's book, and I'm just looking at this whole situation, and no one's having the discussion about the politics behind everything. We scream and shout at each other all the time.
Yep.
We call the politicians dumb.
Right.
But what is the NDR? Why can't we fix our electricity? And it all goes back to the Soviet Union and centralizing power. Montashe is standing in the way of everything, and that's the way we are. That's the way we sit. And we're not having this discussion with average South Africans. If people think communism is a good idea, they need to read more.
I agree.
And this is where we at. Where we at.
Totally agree with you. And I think that, anyone who thinks that this is just pie in the sky and that this isn't the goal of many people in the ANC are not paying attention.
They need to read Dr. Anthea Jeffrey's book. It's plain as day. Do you know why these guys can't clean up the ANC? Because they've all got dirt on each other about what they did in the apartheid, end of apartheid.
Yeah.
They all know.
And
they all know what they did.
And since then, it's
they are dinosaurs of apartheid. Can we move on?
Yeah. Well, okay. All right, Gray. Calm down. Thank you. There we go. See, we go to the lines and look what it does. It puts us all in a crazy state of mind. Anyway, good calls. And I agree with the sentiments of both. Look, Cyril is nowhere to be found. Where is he at the moment? Do we know?
Asking for more money from Parliament.
Yeah, but that was yesterday. Like, what? I mean, was it yesterday or was he in Nigeria? He was there somewhere in Africa for an election result somewhere to celebrate with somebody we don't know yet. This guy is he's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Anyway, listen.
Oh, gosh, guys.
I'm still getting over a cold, so I'm going to wrap this hour up, and we've got Justice Malala next. Pumelele, thank you very much for waking up extra early and going into the office so that you would have good lighting for us this morning. You look fantastic.
Except for still, I checked the schedule and still I lost some. Of the 1 hour I have with you this morning, I still lost minutes because of silly load shedding. But it's always good to be with you, my friend.
Thank you. We will check in with you next week. Thanks, Pums. All right, the interview with Justice Malala coming up next. Stick around for that. CliffCentral.com, Thursday morning.
This week on the Auto Trader Podcast.
Do you think that electric cars are an expensive mistake in terms of your experience in introducing EVs in any sort of country?
200 moving parts versus 2,000 moving parts.
Yeah.
Longer service cycles. No oils and lubricants.
100%.
Simpler technology. Quieter technology. Noise pollution zero.
Yeah.
You tell me where the mistake is. Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Hi, I'm Barrett Edelstein. Join me for my podcast, Celeb Savant. Today I'm with Sophie Ellis-Bextor.
So right at the moment, I'm at home in London, but after I speak to you, I'm going to pack my bags.
3 of the members of UB40, Earl, Matt, and Jimmy.
Well, we're in the middle of a tour at the moment.
Career retrospective with actors, singers, and entertainment industry experts every Friday morning at 9 o'clock on cliffcentral.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
It's the decade that just won't go away, mainly because we won't let it. It's That 80s Show, the show that taste forgot. Every Friday, Paolo and Dory remember the 80s. Movies, music, fashion, wham, beachies, and the half. If it was acceptable in the 80s, it will get you cancelled today. That 80s Show, new episode every Friday, live or as a podcast on cliffcentral.com.
All right. It is that time of the week where we do the Burning Platform. Of course, your chance to catch up on all the current affairs. This week, though, we got something different. Justice Malala, who started the Burning Platform with us 9 years ago and was a part of the foundation of this current affairs show. At that stage, there was nothing else like it. Now there are a few other podcasts, there are a few other shows that are doing current affairs talk the way that we are for a full uninterrupted hour with guests, all kinds of things. Justice really established himself as one of the breakaway outspoken people in current affairs. And remember, it was a very different time 9 years ago. People couldn't really speak as freely as they do now. We take it for granted. And in some ways, things have got better. In some ways, things have definitely got worse. But we also talk a little bit about some of the big stories that are in the news in South Africa right now. We get to that at the end of the interview. The main reason Justice is in the country, because he lives in New York now, is to release his new book, which I'll tell you about in the course of the interview. But it's essentially about those fractious events that occurred in Easter of 1993 when Chris Hani was assassinated and when Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk had to do all the things they could to stop South Africa from descending into chaos. And some people would say that we're in a similar situation almost every other day in South Africa, but I do think that was the closest we came to an outright civil war. And I don't think many people would disagree with that. Here it is, though. I'm going to let you hear it and let you take part in this amazing discussion. It is Justice Malala's triumphant return to the Burning Platform, and I'm really, really pleased that you get to hear it here on cliffcentral.com for the first time this morning. Well, it is auspicious that we should be sitting here. I know for many people it's a cold, wintry morning, but it isn't as cold as the day that Justice writes about in his new book, because although it was back in 1993, so we're approaching an anniversary this year, it was obviously one of the most defining moments in South African history. But as has already been said, Justice has also been a defining voice in South Africa post-1993, and for a very long time has remained one of the most sought after and admired commentators, which is one of the reasons we liked having him on the Burning Platform for those years that we did. And he hasn't ruined his reputation like certain other political commentators by being paid by Herman Mashaba, but we'll leave that alone for the moment, right, Justice? Nice to see you, my friend.
It's so good to be here. Thank you, everyone, for turning up. Thank you for having me. Burning Platform is such a special place for me. I have, I don't know if you guys, if I may segue for just a bit, but one of the things about me is that I was born here in Johannesburg. I grew up in Hammanskraal. People from Joburg, you know, everyone's from everywhere else. They don't like this place. They don't think it's their home, and so forth and so forth. But I think as a kid, I picked up this weird pronunciation of the letter R. Mm-hmm. And I remember when you asked me to come on, I kept on thinking, no one's going to understand a word I'm saying, my R and this and so forth. So, you know, I'd like to thank you for the therapy, basically.
Well, I'll tell you, the people of Hammanskraal have other things to worry about right at the moment. I'll tell you
that, for sure.
With cholera and all the rest of it. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the book, which really deserves a lot more than a little bit of time, and I encourage everybody to take a look at it. It's written Justice beautifully, and it's amazing how even though I was a very young school kid at the time, I remember those events, probably because I'm a history nerd, but you've told them in just the most stark, frightening, nail-biting, goosebump way that you actually go through the timeline and you're there at the moment that Janusz Valus climbs out of his red car, walks over and pulls out his gun, and you can kind of remember, even if you are young, and there are many people here who might not remember the actual events, but you would have seen the footage and everything afterwards of, Chris Hani in that tracksuit. There's so much to talk about here. We'll spend a lot of time talking about this, but I know a lot of people want to hear your thoughts on what's currently going on, and I know you keep up to date with all of that. So we're turning this into a Burning Platform special as well this morning. So let's just start with that inauspicious weekend back in Easter of 1993, which is when all the action took place. Why did you feel that this, you kind of say so here, but why do you feel that this moment was so seminal in this country?
I think South Africa had gone through a lot in the period from 1990. Nelson Mandela came out of prison on February 11. The ANC, SACP, others were unbanned on February 2nd. And that was a huge, joyous moment for many of us, myself included. From the darkness of apartheid to this new wave of possibility, of hope that finally things are going to change. But it didn't work out that way. 1990 came and went. If you lived here in what was the PWV, huge amounts of violence were unleashed. Later, we found out that they were sponsored by the state, paying the IFP or IFP, parts of the IFP to attack township residents in Soweto. People forget that, in that time, if you were coming to work from Soweto, you lived in fear that men would just enter your train coach and carriage and attack you. That there were train massacres. There were massacres in the townships, in Buipatong, in Sebokeng, all parts of South Africa. So the negotiations weren't going that well, but this for me was the ultimate provocation. Ipsos had done a survey in 1992, and one of the questions was, who do you think is the most trusted, who do you love most in the political sphere? And Nelson Mandela came first, and second was Chris Hani. So Chris Hani's image, if you will, among particularly young Black activists was very different from Nelson Mandela's. Nelson Mandela was the face of negotiations. It was, if there was a sense that, for example, on August 6, 1990, the Umkhonto weSizwe lifted suspended the armed struggle. And Nelson Mandela was blamed for that. It was, oh, you're a sellout, and so forth and so forth.
There's still people saying that now.
There's still people saying that, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit. But Chris Hani was seen as the man who didn't sell out, who stood fast, who showed his fist to the apartheid government and said, we want these are demands, and we're not stepping back from them.
And represented a younger and angrier generation, in a way.
Angrier, but hopeful too. I mean, people forget the key thing about Chris Hani is that when it was time for war, he fought. But when it was time for peace, Chris Hani, if you take, for example, today and say, who are these people who are MK, MVA, Umkhonto weSizwe military veterans, and you and I used to talk about them a lot on the Burning Platform. These young MK people, and you say, but Guy, you're 35. How can you say you're MK when, MK suspended the armed struggle in 1990? Where did you train? It's been 30, you were 5.
Like the veterans in Zimbabwe.
Exactly. So, but part of it is that some of those people, maybe the slightly older ones than the 35-year-olds, came from township protection units. And Chris Hani was already at that time thinking very deeply about these young people. What do we do with them? How do we help them integrate into society post a democratic settlement? So I find it interesting that people want to almost paint Chris Hani as a direct opposite of Nelson Mandela, that Mandela sold out and Chris Hani was this pure figure who didn't want peace. He wanted peace. He worked for peace. I write a thing in the book somewhere about what was found on his desk on the day he was murdered. On the Thursday, he was at his office and kept on doing notes about a peace corps. How do you take these young people into becoming soldiers for peace, as it were, or how do you integrate them and so on? He was thinking deeply about those things. So,
and you go into a lot of detail about the relationship between Mandela and Hani, which is, I think, oft misunderstood by people. Mandela had issued a special order to his own office that as much time as he could have with Chris Hani, he wanted. So if he had to travel somewhere, Chris should come with. He was fascinated by this young man.
Yeah, he was fascinated by him. He was a bit scared of him, that this guy, if he didn't, I think Mandela saw himself as, if I want to sell a democratic settlement, I have to sell it to Chris. If I can sell it to him, he can sell it to anyone. And so he made him part of the difficulty of negotiation and the times of negotiation and the times of the small gains that the ANC was making in its negotiations with the National Party and the government of the time. So he loved him deeply, and he saw a lot of himself in Chris Hani. Chris Hani was a radical, was a militant. Mandela, people forget that Mandela was a radical and a militant in the 1940s. The Mandela of 1960, or the Mandela of the 1990s, that, he wants reconciliation and peace. This was the first man to leave South Africa and go and train in Ethiopia. He was the first ANC person to hold a gun in his hand and actually train to take up arms. So the idea that Mandela was this, cuddly teddy bear what I like about those two men, if you will, is that just be careful about saying, oh, they were absolutely this, when there were this and other, and I think it's all of us. Part of the thing I wanted to show in the book, and I'd encourage many of you to watch a movie called Selma. It's about Martin Luther King. And it shows a moment of weakness in Martin Luther King's life when he's marching with thousands of people and he says, the police are going to murder us. Let's stop and turn back. And people said he's weak, that he is a sellout and so forth. In this week of Chris Hani's murder, for me, Nelson Mandela was resolute at times, and at times he said, I've made a mistake, and maybe I need to work it back. And that, for me, is actually ultimate leadership. He was human, he made mistakes, but he fixed them and kept on going. And I like that about him, I really do.
Well, I remember also, and I'm sure everybody who's old enough here does, that was the moment we probably came closest to a complete disruption in civil society, the army being called in, the total descent into chaos in the townships that was planned by the people who wanted to murder Chris Hani. They had a list. Yeah. And Mandela was at the top of the list. Joe Slovo was number 2. Chris Hani was number 3. And when Janusz Valus and Clive Derby-Lewis and the rest of the conspirators, some of whom we're still not sure who they are. I mean, Gay Derby-Lewis, she got off.
Yeah, she was.
It's amazing how close we did come to total civil war at that point. I remember people stocking up on things and saying, this is the moment, right?
Absolutely. I think as a trigger, Clive W. Janusz Valus, whoever else, as you say, was involved. I don't know if I make it explicit enough in the book, but there are people like F.W. de Klerk and others. I'm not sure if they actually realized that they were as much targets of this plan as Nelson Mandela and Joe Slovo and Chris Hani and others. Because the idea was that you kill the most popular leader in the ANC, you spark this anger, but you spark it so that the hardliners in the army would say, look, and would be justified or find justification to say it's time to kick out FW and his cabinet, who were pretty useless people themselves, but you kick out the civilian government and install an army led by the generals, and they say, reset everything to 1980 to 1975, and it was working then. We kept everyone under the cosh.
Martial law
and so forth and so forth. So de Klerk, who was seen as a sellout and all these things, would have been totally sidelined or even jailed. Mandela and them would have been sent back to prison, and essentially you'd have the generals taking over. That was their plan, to trigger essentially a coup d'etat. They didn't want to take over themselves. They wanted the army to take over, and it would be, now it's all good and so forth. And the key thing is that they were frustrated. If you say we want chaos to happen, and Mandela and his comrades and others managed to say, there were huge outbreaks of protest and all kinds of anarchy. But if you contain it, then you don't give the army that reason to say, let's take over.
And one of the ways that it was contained, again, people who are old enough might remember, is Mandela went on TV that very weekend, I think it was the night after, and managed to be strong, stand firm, not give any ground, but at the same time, right at the end, despite wearing a jacket that he didn't want to wear. And these are the kind of details you'll only get from the book. But he then called for calm and peace and said, if we incite violence now, we will be handing this country over to the people who don't want you to be free.
Yeah. So the story of the speech is actually the story of speeches. So one of the reasons I wanted to write the book was because April 10, 1993 was, I was an intern at the Star, and basically all the senior journalists, Easter weekend, no one wants to work, and so they all take off. And as the interns, it was myself and a few others, were taken up to the newsroom and told, these are the numbers for the cops, these are the numbers for this, you're in charge. And there was one news editor who sort of oversaw us, but basically there was no one. The paper had been designed, the Sunday paper had been designed, and it was ready to go. So we were just supposed to sit there and call the cops every hour. What's happening? Oh, okay.
Well, now you'd just be put on hold, so at least you could have got through to them then.
But what happened is that Chris Hani gets mad at, I get sent out to Don Park, and then later in the afternoon I get sent out to Soweto, and I come back, I scribble my stuff. But I always had the memory that Nelson Mandela went on television that evening and gave a fantastic speech, and that calmed things down. So when I set off to write it, I kept on thinking, yeah, that's the pivotal part. How did this speech do this?
That's how the story goes.
But actually, it's Mandela arrives back from Kunu late in the evening. He only gets to the SABC at 10:30. He reads from the auto cue.
Can't really see.
No one is watching. The SABC had a movie on. What was it called now? It's somewhere in the book.
But there was a 7:00 bulletin which most people would watch.
Yeah, he missed that.
He missed that. Then there was an 8:00 one which the rest of the people would watch. But by this time,
people are not watching. People are worrying about other things or have gone to sleep. and so forth and so forth. So Mandela, it's historic. For the first time, a black man, a man whose name you could never mention on the SABC. Remember, if you said Nelson Mandela on the SABC, you got a 5-year automatic, you went to jail. If you quoted him 5 years automatic, it was, you don't talk about this man, he was banned. So for the first time, and this is historic, Nelson Mandela goes on national television. We talk about family meetings now with Cyril Ramaphosa. Actually, that was the original, the first family meeting, but no one, very few people actually saw it. So Nelson Mandela then, a few days later, says, why that didn't work out as we wanted. So then he says, I have to go back and do this again. And for me, it's a beautiful moment of leadership, knowing that, oh, I did that, I tried that, it didn't work, let's do it again. And that's when he writes those pivotal, amazing words to the speech that everyone quotes. So people like me and others always quoted that speech that Mandela on Saturday evening went on TV and said this. But actually it took him 3 days to write those lines and to give the speech that really kind of began to turn things. And that's the speech when he says, I'm reaching out to all South Africans, black and white. He says, a white man full of hate came to our land and murdered our beloved son. I'm paraphrasing. And he says, a white woman saw the killer and had the presence of mind to call and memorize the register number plate and had the presence of mind to call the police. Rieta Harmse was her name. And within 35, 40 minutes, Janus Wallus was arrested. And that speech by if you think about Janus Wallus and Clive W. Lewis, they wanted to say black against white. That was the key thing in their attempt to spark this conflict. And Mandela saying, a white man full of hate came to our land and killed Chris Hani. A white woman saw the killer and memorized the number plate and called the police was a beautiful juxtaposition of they are trying to make you think in terms of race and black and white and enemy, friend, and so forth. Here's the thing. The same people that say whites are enemies of blacks, a white woman saw this. And it took the sting out of that week. I mean, it's not a turning point that many people say Mandela stopped the war. There were other things, and I'll talk about them here. But that was one of the most powerful moments of that week. And that's when you begin to see a realization that actually the attempt here is to destroy all of us, not just go for the one or go for the other. It's for all of us to turn around and say, these white people and these black people, you see them, us, them, and cause this.
Yes, a narrative that bears repeating some of the time. There are characters in this book, though, that are very much still part of our lives. Obviously, just recently, Janusz Wallus was released on parole. Clive Derby Lewis was also released some time ago, but died shortly thereafter of lung cancer. There must be, because you did a lot of research here, you looked at their testimony at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, for which neither of them were exonerated because the TRC believed they were withholding a lot of information, that they weren't telling the full story. You hear lots of rumors, and you've now done the research. There are people who still talk about this hidden, invisible hand behind the whole assassination of Chris Hani. Do you believe there was more to it than this small and quite incompetent conspiracy that very nearly caused the chaos that it wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two levels to it. So the first thing is that I honestly believe that there was a cell which worked to pull off the actual matter itself. And I think it goes beyond Janus Wallus and Clive Derby Lewis. So there are 6, 7 other people who were certainly one was waiting in line that if Janus Valus didn't do it, he'd be available to pull the trigger. I believe that some of the neighbors, some of the providers of the gun, some of the people who pointed to this is how we, a silencer was supposed to be used on the day it wasn't used, and all those people. So I think the actual cell itself was about 7 people. And I think the investigation was very much, let's find the key people, let's forget about prosecuting the minor players in that cell. So I think they got away with murder. The wider conspiracy is something that right from the beginning has been spoken about. And I think this is should be a source of shame and of, I think it's, I was saying to
Just
you,
look behind you for the next few minutes.
No. I'll tell you what it is. I want to put it this way. You and I sit here and we say, oh, we're going on the burning platform, and we sit there and we analyze, because you don't have the might and the power of the state behind you to say, if I'm going to analyze how a child, a newborn, ends up in a cardboard box in a hospital, the best I can do is to analyze how we got here, and perhaps to use my voice to condemn why we are here. The ANC government since 1994 has failed with the SACP, with Jeremy Cronin, with all the others. Every year they stand up and say, our hero Chris Hani was murdered and so forth. Then they go and sit in government. But not once has anyone said, we've got the might of the state. Let us reopen this case and talk about the allegations of there were cigarettes and Fanta or Coca-Cola cans. It looks like someone was sitting there staking out this. So every year you hear, yeah, and there were these people and so forth. Why don't, if we are in power, why don't we use the power that we have in the state to do these things? So the conspiracy around the murder of Chris Hani is fueled by an ANC which can do something about it and doesn't do anything about it. So again and again, I find myself just dismayed and wowed and disappointed by the fact that we seem to have a state that analyzes and never does anything. So as I said, I'm from Hammanskraal. I went on Sunday to see my mother, Saturday. And the village right next to my mother's is called Stengvater. It's been called Stengvater because the water has always been
smelly.
Shit, basically. So you continue these things. And so I have all my ANC friends, all my, the Minister of Health, Joe Patla, who I have a lot of time for, and others are over there. They're analyzing this thing. It's not your job to analyze. It's my job to analyze. You fix the problem. You're in power. That's why I gave you 5 years. So this whole thing around Chris Hani and the plot, the conspiracy, and how far it goes, we could have resolved this with the TRC, could have resolved this with the police, the Hawks, and all sorts of bodies.
It's almost as if there wasn't even any curiosity. It's like
So in fact, I would say the past 30 years, if anyone says to me, do you believe there was a conspiracy to kill Chris Hani? I say to you, I can talk till the cows come home about, oh, this one was here and and there are so many theories and arms deals and so forth. If anyone is serious in this country, in this government, to find the real truth, why hasn't there been a reopening of the case so that the Hani family can find some closure, some peace from this? Why is it, or maybe the real conspiracy is that, people enjoy standing up on the 10th of April every year for 30 years, talking about Chris Hani, but not doing anything to give that family closure.
All right, so then that brings us more to the present, because the people who conspiracy theorists say would have benefited the most from this within the ANC, there are obviously lots of people who benefited on the outside, are two people who've subsequently been presidents of this country. The one currently is, because a lot of people say that Mandela was either grooming Chris Hani or that Chris Hani was grooming himself to eventually take a far more powerful leadership role within the movement. Do you believe that that's what, I mean, now I'm asking you to predict.
No, actually you're not, because that question was asked. Steve Tshwete in 2003 went on television. You'll remember he went on, Deborah Patta used to have Third Degree, I think it was called. Went on Third Degree and said, yes, the cops, I can confirm that the police are investigating an allegation made by Thabo Mbeki that Tokyo Sekgwale, Cyril Ramaphosa, and Matthews Posa, that they were going around alleging that he benefited from that, and so forth and so forth. So in fact, the assassination of Chris Hani has almost destroyed the ANC. All these people that we mention now have been at loggerheads, at war with each other ever since. And my question is this: Thabo Mbeki was the president of South Africa. Jacob Zuma was the president of South Africa. Cyril Ramaphosa is the president. Why hasn't any one of them, even Jacob Zuma has said that he thinks that something was going on there. Well, he was the head of intelligence of the ANC. Why didn't he ask those questions? Why hasn't he done anything about it? So the matter of Chris Hani continues today to be a huge source of, I think, part of the pain of the ANC, part of the pain that it doesn't know, of the trauma that it doesn't perhaps know, or deliberately decides, I'm just going to keep this under the carpet. And it's the family secret we don't talk about. With all the power that the ANC has enjoyed and still enjoys today.
So the book is available here, but I want to just fast forward a little bit to the present. Must be very nice for you living in America to come back here with the dollar and rand at this current exchange rate. Anthea, who's here, told me just now it's what, 1970 something? Oh my God. Okay, so Justice, what are you buying us afterwards? Do we have to buy your book, or are you going to give us your books for free? Because we need all the help we can get.
You know, Anthea, I hope one of the worst things about being so enmeshed with South Africa, because I still earn a living here and so forth, is that you're watching that ticker as it goes 1976, 1970, and you think, what I'm earning, what am I earning? Where's my earnings going? Yeah. But I think the key things, so there's a little graphic, and I'm sure Anthea can do it for us, where you look at the lira, you look at all the emerging market currencies, right? And you say, oh, they're all taking a beating because the dollar is too strong, or the Fed is doing this and so forth. But if you look at it long enough, you start realizing that there's the rand on its own.
We're underperforming all the underperformers.
And the key thing to that is that we are the masters of their own goal. Everything that we should just do as a matter of course, that everyone else does, we just, you know, in Setswana, you just go off into the bush, basically.
Well, it especially feels like that right now. I mean, I look at Hammanskraal, which obviously is close to home. It is home to you. I look at what's going on in parts of KwaZulu-Natal. I look at the electricity crisis. It's almost like they've just decided in the ANC, we don't know what to do. Hands up, we're just going to walk away. Because it's not as if anyone's there in crisis meetings. You don't get the impression there's any urgency here at all.
No, I mean, the ANC is analyzing. This is the problem.
Analysis paralysis.
It's just, anyone, you say to the ANC, anyone in the ANC, and you say, let's have what's going on with Russia, Ukraine? Oh, man, it will be a new world order, And then you say, but the rand is tanking. You're about to lose your access to the biggest market in the Americans are going to go away and say, AGOA, well, why should we be doing this? 6,800 products that you get into the US tariff-free, suddenly you're going to be paying more to get those products into the US. And no, but our friends, can I just say, I want to make this point and I'll make it again and again. There is this myth in South Africa that the Russians stood by the liberation movements. We need historians here. In 1963, the ANC took 20 people to Moscow. They were trained. The next 400 were trained in Kiev and Odessa, which is in Ukraine. Over the 70s, if you go to Kiev and Odessa, you will find Mahlangus there. You will find many, many black South Africans who fled in 1976 ended up in Odessa and Ukraine. So this whole entire thing that, no, but we must stand with the Russians, they helped us. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics helped us. And in the USSR, it was Russia, it was all kinds of, including Ukraine. So, I mean, we are on this jolly. I'm not sure why, and it's going to just really hurt us. I'm sorry to say, Anthea, I don't know what we at today, 1976 to the dollar. But if this continues, the currency is going to take an even bigger beating, and there is pain ahead on this path. And we can talk about it.
What about all those people who said, oh, no, all you have to do is get rid of Jacob Zuma, all those very smart people at News 24 who told us, no.
Some of them were on the banning platform, I have to confess.
Pray for Cyril, as soon as he comes in, everything will be fine. As long as we get rid of Gedlehle, everything's cool.
Well, I think the fundamental mistake, and I think I'm one of those people who made that mistake, was to say, this individual is amazing and so forth, without looking at the ANC as a whole. The ANC as a whole is in terminal crisis, and Cyril Ramaphosa wants to save the ANC, and save the ANC by his own standards. That is, keep the ANC together, keep the faction that was the Jacob Zuma faction in-house and so forth. So part of it, I mean, an extraordinary thing happened on Friday in Parliament. Sidney Mufumadi, the National Security Advisor to President Ramaphosa, says, Andre de Ruyter gave me the name of the politicians that are implicated in corruption at Eskom. All along, the ANC, even today, is saying, I'm suing Andre de Ruyter for how dare he say blah, blah, blah.
We have yet to see a case open.
We have yet to see the case open. But this is a man who went to Pravin Gordhan has admitted that, yes, he did give me the names. The National Security Advisor has admitted that, yes, I was given the names. So right now, Andre de Ruyter is hiding somewhere in Germany, I believe. While the ANC is suing him, no one is saying, we don't have electricity. What are we doing to fix that problem? Because, quite frankly, the ANC can go after De Ruyter all it likes, but my mother doesn't have electricity. Right now, my mother has a borehole, which I sunk for her 25 years ago. Now, she's saying, Justice, my son, you live in America. Where's my generator? So my mother is basically going to run a government.
Yes, in her own house.
In her own house. because
She does not use the government at all.
she doesn't use that. My mother
She's never had
hardly-
security.
She's never had security. So
Now she doesn't have water or electricity. So what does
what does the
government do for her?
state do for her? And this is fundamental to what a state means. If we don't, because the people in this room have ADT or whatever the service is called, they have inverters for when the lights go out, they have da-da-da, and all these things. So all of us are, this is the state of Gareth Cliff, and that is the state of Muzi, and everyone has their own little local municipality running in their own home. No one goes. So when this crisis started in Hammanskraal a week ago, I looked back at the articles I wrote. 4 years ago, a friend of mine died at Jubilee Hospital. This is the hospital where the cholera patients are being treated. I wrote about going to see him and sitting there while rats scuttled across the floors. You can find it, it's on Times Live. Just do Justice Malala Jubilee Hospital. The garbage stuff was not changed for days on end. So this is a government hospital that is now that is now the epicenter of the treatment of this outbreak. So I just think South Africa, we all need to do something and do something very urgently and very quickly because at every level we just seem to be regressing.
But the key question then, because I think everybody here agrees with that, is what? What do you do? I mean, what can citizens do? We can complain. We do that.
So
South Africans complain better than anyone else. We hear people talking about a tax revolt. That's never going to happen. We hear people talking about the elections, the next elections. Oh, no, the next elections will sort it out. You wrote a book a couple of years ago called We've Now Begun Our Descent, right? Mm. That was the first book you brought out. That was how many years ago?
2016, 2015, late
So,
2015.
No matter how much fuel your plane has, if you're still descending after then, that's a hell of a long time to be in descent. You should have crashed by now. So give us some hope, for God's sake, or at least tell us what we should be doing.
This is the tough questions, I guess, so I'm going to leave now. I'm working on a project at the moment, and it's my little project, and my little project is this. 40 million people were eligible to vote in the local elections in November 2021. Out of those, only 26 million were registered to vote. So already 14 million have decided are not going to be on the day, because when you vote, you have to be on the voters' roll. So 14 million took themselves out of the system, boom, right from the onset. So you're left with 26 million. On the 1st of November, only 12 million actually turned up and voted. So out of 40 million people, just 25, 26%, 27% turned up to vote. If in 1990 I talk about my own hope, my own personal hope that things are going to get better, one of the key things about 1994 was that, my word, for the first time in my life, Muzi and I could go and vote. We could express our own will and say, this is what we want. So my own little project is to get out of that 12 million, to get those 12 million to go back and vote next year, and to get 4 million. So my number is 16 million. To get 16 million people back into voting. It's not even half. And hopefully we get to 18 or 20 million. But to get those people, and I don't, if they love the ANC and think the ANC is doing a great job, all good and fine. If they love Herman Mashaba and think he should be paying people 12 million bucks, good for them. They should go and do it. But I think that the death of trust in the institutions and what they can do is the end of it. It's the crash. It's not the descent that you talk about. So that for me is my focus for the next year. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to put together. What else can I do? What can people do? I think people understand. You talk about a tax revolt is not possible, but if you think about it, when last did you pay for driving on the highways?
No. I know we're good at that.
Yeah.
But the problem is most people who earn anything, and there are only a few people in this country who have work. We've got a huge unemployment problem.
Yeah.
Those who have work, they don't have a say. The tax comes off before they can go to their employer, some big bank, and say to them, "Oh no, I'm going to refuse this month." I mean, if they were bold enough, like the leaders of the banks were when Des van Rooyen was made minister, remember?
Yeah.
They went and sat with the president and said, "You do this, there's going to be big shit." They should do the same thing now.
Yes. So
don't have the courage,
that's the answer. People actually have done it before, and they can do it again. Maybe this is because it looks so hard. You think it's impossible to do, but maybe this is the time to speak about what am I paying for? Because it's your tax money.
I'm all for this.
But
I just hear people making excuses the whole time, and I can see lots and lots of people saying, "Oh no, well we can't do that. That's a step too far."
Well, I mean,
they've taken away your electricity. They're putting dirty water into your house.
People are dying of cholera when they shouldn't be dying of cholera. And so, what's a step too far? I think saying I'm going to withdraw my taxes is not a step too far. It's worth discussing as a country that, look, I mean, you guys are just not doing the right things. So what are we talking about?
So if I start and they put me in jail, will you come and speak up for me?
I'll speak up for you for sure. Will I join you?